Well, howdy, friends and neighbors. Hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully, this thing is coming through. Had a little hiccup before we went live. I'm going to check it right now just to make sure that you guys are getting my audio loud and clear. And it looks like it should be all good. See a lot of friendly faces in the chat. Nice to see you. Welcome. Chiefs are on schedule. They are running, they are hitting full padded practices. A lot of you guys are old regulars, so it's nice to see you all. We are going to get into it, particularly Willie Gay, who talked to the media today, and I have some takeaways from that. A lot going on around the channel. You've seen Dan a little bit more, and you guys, those of you that are regulars, I know that you understand this is a process. Dan's trying to get as much information to everybody as possible, so he talks a little bit extra, and I think that's great because he's going to thin it out, but he wants to get as much information as he's finding to all of you. So give him some support. I hope that you will. We have a couple other things going. Some of our videos are going to be over on the Fan to Fan Network now. Danilo DiGiulio is going to be doing that for us, making some posts over there. It's going to grow the channel, go out to a wider audience. And if you saw the live stream that I did with Fan to Fan yesterday, a lot of interesting characters on there. Chris Johnson was on the live stream. A lot of interesting stuff from him. It's going to be a unique season, and I'm looking forward to it, but it is going to be a challenge. There's no way around it. We will get to your questions very shortly. A couple of announcements. The memberships are getting done. The shirts are getting done. I kind of showed Dan a little bit, but I'm a one-man crew still in terms of the graphic stuff, so I'm still working on it. We have a number of things in Chiefs camp to talk about. The injuries are certainly some of them. Looks like late tonight we'll just start off with this, that the Chiefs have a couple of tryouts. The team is off tomorrow, but they have tryouts scheduled, and they're going to bring in Marcus Kemp. We're going to see where he's at. And I think they like Marcus. They certainly liked him before the injury, and it's all about, I think, whether he's back or not, whether he is fully healthy, and they're going to get a good look at him tomorrow. That said, let me open this. Tonight's beer is from Snake River. It is a nice amber that I'm going to enjoy. What is it, 4.8? It's called Jenny Lake Lager. If you guys get a chance, try that out. This is one of my new favorites, at least the ones that I don't make, so cheers. The beer channel's coming along too, so if you're into craft beer, make sure you jump over to RGR Craft and check that out as well. So, Willie Gay's on the cover for a reason. Willie has been talking about his positional stuff today, playing more of the Sam in the base. This is a lot of like what they tried to do last year. Playing he called it the buck, and buck terminology kind of runs around. When you're talking about a nickel or a 3-4, that's the inside weak side backer in a 3-4. When you're talking about what is the more typical usage in a 3-4-4-3, it's that outside linebacker that comes down and turns into the defensive end in the four-man front. That's what Justin Houston used to do. The same terms are used in different defensive schemes and by different coaching staffs. You just got to get a feel for it. But so clearly they're getting him some nickel work, and I think that's the big takeaway. Don't worry about what the term is. The big thing is that Willie's working in the nickel. Like we said, that's where he ought to be. And I think that's really a positive sign for him. And getting that base, the base is going to be interesting because they took a guy who should have been playing Sam in Wilson, moved him to Will last year. There was a little bit back and forth. You saw what Reggie did when he walked down. And that was really more of a traditional Sam type maneuver, but that buck really plays into it. So again, it's all about terminology. You're going to see mixed usage for all of these linebackers. The question is, when will you see Willie on the field? And from all intents and purposes, what Steve Spagnuolo had to say today seems like that he's coming along and getting the gist of it, that mentally he's a get-it guy, and so is L'Jarius Sneed. I was very happy to hear that. L'Jarius is playing at a more difficult position, I think, and playing in that secondary, especially with all the corners that are out, so he should be getting good reps. We're not getting counts from camp, so I'm not really happy about that yet, but you can only do what you can do. So that said, that's the Willie update off the top. We'll get into the questions here because I see some old friends. Cole's here. How are you, Cole? What would you think if theoretically Derrick Thomas and Derrick Johnson were on the same defense, assuming they were possible to put players in different eras on the same team? I'd love it. But you gotta qualify. Was it Derrick Johnson early or after the benching? Because Derrick after, the mature Derrick Johnson, would have been a perfect complement to the pressure, not only with Derrick, but with Neil as well. So you want to put all those things together. If you're making an all century team or an all franchise team, yeah, I think you got to put both those guys on there. No disrespect to the older generation, but yeah, I think that's important. And I think you could definitely justify that with those two guys. Great question, Cole. Thank you, Cole, for laying that out. Folks, if you are new to the channel, hit the sub and the like and the bell notification right now. And when you ask your question, put some question marks before it. It helps me pick them out of the chat. And I am terrible at it. I don't see Aaron in here yet, our fearless mod, but I'm sure he will be here. I haven't heard from him that he won't, so that's my assumption. And that brings me back to the memberships. I'm starting to lay it out. The base membership is going to be the classic YouTube with icons and emojis and things that set you apart from the rest of the fan base in the chats and on your comments on the channel. Then we're going to bump it up a little bit with the second level. And then the third level is where it's going to get real interesting. It's going to be a little bit more money, and we're going to spread these out so some are real affordable and some kind of grow up. And when you get to the third level, we're going to be talking about doing an after-hours show where myself, Dan, Aaron will do something where it's a little more frank discussion. It's not the professional setup that I try to do here for the public image. It will be a members-only stream that you'll be able to ask questions. We'll all be on there together, kind of a Zoom type thing, and that'll be the level. And then if you go for the platinum level, it's going to end up being where you get a one-on-one with one of us. So that's going to be some interesting stuff. I'm trying to get all the minutia of how it's going to work, but that's some interesting things. And Aaron's going to participate in some of that, is my understanding. So we'll get more from him as well. But in the meantime, Cole's doing a great job reminding everybody the question marks at the beginning. And it looks like there's a super chat already. Very much appreciate all the support that you guys give us here with the super chats. But please, if you haven't done it before, or even if you're an old regular, if you do a super chat and you want to contribute to the channel, we are very happily in your debt. But please make sure you ask a question so I can give you something for it right now tonight. And we're going to cover a gamut of questions tonight. I am absolutely sure. So with that said, we'll get rolling on to the next one. And that is from old friend Jeff Porter. Jeff, how are you? I have a couple of developments for you as well. I keep saying I'm going to get in touch with you, and I will. I just don't know when, but it's coming. Your question, which of the players that we know are missing week one, do you see them being hard to replace? Breland, Pennell, Thornhill. I think those are the top three. I'm not worried about Noddy yet. Noddy had offseason ankle surgery. We found out from Andy Reid last week. He hasn't been practicing with the padded practices. There's plenty of time for that. I know it's a compressed timeline, but he is going to get an opportunity. So I'm not going to put him into that group yet. But yes, Breland, I do expect to be out. And so we're looking at not only is he out, but who's injured. Because right now, Hill and Hamilton are both injured. And the Chiefs have been talking up Antonio Hamilton all offseason. I still don't feel like I'm buying it, to tell you the truth. I do feel like he's a special teams player, and if he's missing, that is going to hurt them. But on the defense itself, I still feel like there's question marks there about who's going to fill in. And L'Jarius Sneed is one of the guys that you guys have heard me talk up for good reason. And they're going to have to put some impetus on him there. He's going to have to buckle that down. Otherwise, it's going to get very interesting very quick, because the depth there is not what I like. Yes, you can roll Tyrann Mathieu down into the slot and take part of that on. So then you're looking at Ward, Mathieu, Fenton, and okay, as long as everybody's healthy, then that's perfectly acceptable. Spags talked a little bit about Tedrick Thompson today, about how it's been difficult for him to get up and rolling, but he's getting there. That's important because he might be somebody, he and Armani Watts, that might have to fill in for Juan. Sorry, folks, it's been a long day. And if somebody does have to fill in for one, that puts that much more impetus on the defensive backfield. So that makes things difficult. Pennell is one that week one, I'm not as concerned. Nothing against what the Texans have done running the ball in the past, but they need Mike Pennell by week 3. He's got to be good to go on week 3 with the Ravens. Because not only is Lamar going to run around the outside, but they are going to take that brand new rookie as well as the guys that they have and cram them down the tackles. There is going to be a lot of run action in that game. So Mike Pennell needs to be back by week 3. This thing that Steve Spagnuolo said today about him missing games due to a suspension, first I had heard of it, so I don't know the details. They haven't released what it's going to be or what the infraction is, so it's hard to guess at how many games it will be. If it's a 4-game, they better be appealing. That's one thing that we do know, that they are in the appeal process, and we're hoping to get it down to 2, whatever it is. Now, Mike was out of the league for a while, so don't hold it against him too much. He might have ingested something or, ate something that had something, dietary supplements or whatever, not knowing if he was going to be back on the roster. So let's hope that it's only a 2-game, because they are going to need him in week 3. Thorny, okay, cover all your guys. Rock on. Next question, Mr. Gary Holland, how are you? What Pennell gets suspended for? Don't know. And do you think the Chiefs need to sign Clowney, Logan, or Freeman? Definitely not Freeman or Clowney. Not even close. I don't want either of them. Because there's no reason to have Freeman, because he'll just take away from Clyde. And Clyde was very specific about how he's getting the first looks and he is pulling information out of Darrell Williams. And they have a relationship. I didn't realize until he said it today or yesterday that the Darrell Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire overlapped at LSU. It must have been Darrell's last year and Clyde's freshman year. Because I didn't think that they had done that. But that's a really interesting twist, that not only are they both LSU backs, but they had played together before. I think that's great. And I don't think that it's a negative thing that Clyde's getting. He's a first-round pick for a reason. I don't think it's negative that he's getting the first runs, but it is significant that, like I told you a couple weeks ago, Darrell is getting the number 1 reps when Clyde was out yesterday with some dehydration issues. So, definitely not Freeman. Clowney plays a position that the Chiefs feel really, really good about. They like Alex Okafor. If you guys didn't see him, the Chiefs have all of the pressers up on their YouTube channel. Check that out. Alex Okafor knows what he's doing, and he knows the defense he left when he got injured is not the same defense that finished the season. He was very adamant about getting back with the guys and picking back up where he left off to improve his game. I'm very good to hear him say that, because I do think in terms of overall versatility and experience, he is the guy that should be starting opposite Frank Clark. But you have all kinds of pass rushers there, different variations of guys, and Steve Spagnuolo was very happy with the depth they have at defensive end. I don't see an upside to signing Clowney. He doesn't produce pressure and sacks as well as some of the guys that are on this roster in terms of percentage-wise. He is very good against the run. I give him credit there, but I don't think for the dollar signs and given the cap space that the Chiefs have, it's just not worth it. If Logan is rock bottom dollar, like for a veteran kind of signing, $3-4 million, I could see that. I don't think that he's a guy that they really dig, because I don't feel that it's a perfect fit. He would have to be squeezing into some roles that I'm not sure that they feel he's great at. But he is a guy with a ton of veteran experience, the ability to do some of the things that they like, particularly playing in Tyron's role. And if Tyron's at the nickel, then that makes sense and that could work. But it just comes down to whether they think it's really an advantage or not, given the dollars against the cap. And right now, I doubt that it is. We could see something different. So that's the big 3, Gary. Good question. Aaron is here. Okay, good. I was just about scrolling, and I'm glad you're here, Aaron. I must be really behind the chat already. So, Mr. Harry, how are you? Some of the D-line's best plays were when was lined up next to Jones. You were absolutely correct. Chase, what's Pennell getting suspended for? Still don't know. If it comes out tonight, I'll let you guys know on the podcast tomorrow. And if you're not subscribed to the Locked On Chiefs podcast, go ahead and grab that, because that's more of the news, the professional stuff that Chris and I go through as part of the network, where we get a whole lot more information. Whereas this is more my take and interpretation on film and personnel, etc. And is this the 3rd substance abuse violation? I do not know. And Curtis, it's banned substances rather than substance abuse. They can't really prove that. So if it is the 3rd, then it could be significant. So I'll be interested to find out myself, and hopefully we'll know that tomorrow. Let's see what else we got. Who's next? Oh, Curtis has another one. Can you explain the buck, LB, in detail, please? Okay, so that's what I was going into earlier. I'm glad I covered that. And usually in the systems that I've seen, there is a K on it, just so you know. Excuse me. Got tickled there. So in this system, again, they're referring to the buck as the will in the opposite side from the tight end in the nickel, or whatever the strong of the formation is. If it's a 3-by-1 or whatever, that's the concept. And that allows him to run. That's where he should be. So obviously the coaches know what they're doing with that. And I think that they're going to give him more reps there, honestly, than anywhere. And that makes perfect sense to me. Let's see. Clinton, how are you? Who are you going to make this team solely because they are Tobes guys? That's a really good question. Hamilton for certain. If Kemp is healthy, he's one that right now comes in and is probably the sixth receiver and bumps both Jordy Fortson and Garrett Dieter off the roster because they trust Kemp to do his special teams work. Absolutely. It's all about whether he's healthy or not. Who else? Despite anything else, Dan Sorensen's played good on defense last year. He's played better for Spags than he ever did for Sutton, so he doesn't even need to rely on special teams. But Dave Pope is going to use him a lot on special teams. And you saw his instinctualness, how he flushed out that one. I think it was against the Texans last year. He's a great special teams player as well. And same thing with Anthony Sherman. He's going to make the team because he's the only fullback, but he is going to contribute heavily on the special team. So I won't say it's because of that. Who else could be a toe guy? Baselia? I don't even know how you pronounce that. Speedster, young wide receiver, kick returner from University of Washington. Okay. Good. Aaron is here. I am happy to see that. Oh, Stevie Keys, you're here too. How are you, buddy? Natalie. Nipper Girl, how are you? Michael Green, seems everyone is high on Clyde. Do you put any stock into that? I mean, I am. I see what he did in college in a pro offense, so I have high hopes for him. I don't necessarily put into stock, what all the other talking heads have to say. I put special weight on guys that played the game and recognized that. Chris Johnson actually said yesterday about how he thinks he should be definitely in the running for defensive player or offensive player of the year, rookie of the year, and that he thinks he'll win it. So, I mean, when Chris Johnson, a guy who relied on his speed and still recognizes that even though Clyde is not a speed player, that he's quick and he makes guys miss, that's significant for me. So, yeah, for sure. I do put a little bit into where he is, and I expect Clyde to do well. It's about managing him, to tell you the truth. He did play long seasons at LSU because they were successful, but still, at this level, it's still a change. Let's see. Hot and Spicy made it. Let's see who else has a question. There's Ryan Strange. How are you? Anybody surprise you in camp so far? I think one of the surprises is Jody Fortson, but you guys have heard me talk about him. He's no surprise to me. I interviewed him last year prior to camp for the Locked On Chiefs podcast, and I thought his attitude is great. I think he has a skill set that is just raw, but I think he accelerates better than he appears on film in college. And I think his route running needs work. And if he's been able to do that work in this isolation, more power to him. I expect big things from him. But there's also that thing that it's just early days of training camp. And sometimes you have training camp heroes that don't make the roster. And that's just the truth. It's because just the way that it works. But I do have high hopes for him. On the offensive side, I mean, Wiley's working with the ones is how I understand it. I kind of expected that. So that's not really a big surprise, but I hope that maintains itself. And I hope that brings them a little more aspect of power. I'm looking for that. Hot and Spicy, how are you? Are you expecting a higher number of injuries this year than others? Not necessarily injuries that cause missed games, but yes. Like you see now, I think there were 9 guys that were held out of practice today that were not, on the pup, like Juan and Martinez Rankin. And that comes from the soft tissue stuff. And Andy says he's not concerned about it. Andy said yesterday that he feels it's the same volume as it was in years past at training camp. I have not seen, I don't recall seeing 9 guys out with soft tissue injuries in a single day in the last couple of years. It's on the high side, but I don't think it's anything to get super concerned about yet. And the good thing is that we're not hearing about anybody tearing anything. It's not torn hamstrings. It's sore hamstrings. It's pulls. It's things that you can recover from. So I do feel good about that. And it makes me think that they're in pretty good shape going forward. They just got to continue to do what Rick Burkholder and his team says. Keep doing the rehab. You know, you don't have the ice tubs like you did last year. It's a little bit more cumbersome. You don't have the hot tub work or the availability as much. So some of the rehab part is a little bit more difficult. And I do encourage you guys, I'll try to link it after the show goes back on replay. But I do encourage you to go watch the Kingdom short that the Chiefs channel put out specifically on all that background stuff. I put it in the Hard Knocks video I did over the weekend. I know many of you didn't watch it. Doesn't seem anybody wants content that isn't Chiefs, but I do try to cover the NFL in its entirety. And specifically what Hard Knocks does is show you that the Chiefs are doing a pretty dang good job about taking care of their players and thinking outside the box and being very, very thorough. I think that's an encouraging sign in a season that we have no guarantee of completing. The Chiefs seem to be one of the teams that are out front hearing it. So I like that. How bad does an ACL tear in a fifth cornerback hurt our depth? That's a good question. Does it make us more or less likely to sign a veteran corner? Those are two separate questions completely. And I understand why you asked them together, but I do want to differentiate because specifically for this front office, because there's an injury at the position doesn't mean they're going to go out and sign a vet. Now they thought that Alex Brown was going to be a contributor. They had talked him up through the offseason. So that fact I think is more significant just than it's your fifth cornerback. But here's the thing. Your fourth cornerback is a guy that has traditionally only played special teams and hasn't had many defensive reps. And when he has played, hasn't been that effective. That's a problem. And now your fifth guy is out. So if you needed a little competition, if you need somebody to step up and take that fourth, now the guy you thought you had is gone. That puts a lot of impetus on young guys. I think it does improve the chances of bringing in a veteran corner a little bit more. But I don't think it makes it an imperative, not for this staff. This staff thinks that they can make do with the guys that they have, and they like the guys that they have. And they're not afraid, not only Steve Spagnuolo, but I would think that Dave Merritt and Sam Madison are comfortable moving their guys around and putting them in maybe less than comfortable positions because they feel that they can coach their guys up and their guys are teachable enough to make up the difference. So more power to them. They're the ones in charge, and I'm going to trust them until they prove that they're wrong. Muhammad, how are you? Do you think that Wiley will how do you think Wiley will do this year at guard? I think he'll be good. I won't think he'll be, unearthly. He still has some issues with anchor. He still has some issues getting off balance. Guys can long arm him a little bit. I think that's part of why he lost reps last year. But clearly, I think he's their best option on that side this year. And we have to see how he continues to develop. I think that he will. And I expect a middling season from him, solid but not outrageous, but not a huge liability either. So if he does prove to not come in shape and he's not as athletic, this might be the one year that maybe that isn't super terrible because I think they are going to have to go less screen action, less tosses, less things where you're trying to get the guards on the outside because Semele and he are not the athletic guys that LDT and even Cam Irving were. So it changes the way that you run the offense, not necessarily what you do in the offense. So I think that's significant. Let's see, where were we? Mr. Gooch, you're back. What's up, buddy? Appreciate. In fact, folks, that's another perk for the memberships. I'm just going to start giving shout outs to all the members because Mr. Gooch has been a longtime supporter of the channel, and I appreciate it, Brian. Let's go. Mr. David Angel Molina, thank you. Another longtime supporter, and I appreciate it very much. What's up, buddy? Hey, nobody should. This is all for you guys. If you have the time, you have the time. If you don't, I completely understand. I appreciate you coming back, though. I have a great time with this, and you guys are the reason why I do this. Daryl Miller, how are you? Chief said that there will be fans in the stands, but only 22%. You are absolutely correct, and I will even share with you some of the specifics. I went over this in depth on the podcast for tomorrow. It is past time. So it's up now. It is available. Listen to it tonight, tomorrow on your commute or whatever. Check that out because I went through heavy detail on it in the second segment of today's show. And this is the specifics. 22% at the kickoff of the season. Now, what they're saying there is that's going to be about 16,000 seats per game out of the, 76,000 capacity or whatever it is. I can't remember the number. But they're saying that's how they're starting the season to kick off the 2020. If they find that the spread of the virus slows or they find that they're not getting an infection rate or word of an infection rate from those attending, they might change that. I think this leaves it a little bit open. I think this is, again, a starting point to begin with. And they're doing a lot of creative things. Again, I think the Chiefs are one of the more creative, outside-the-box thinking organizations in the league. They're doing a lot of creative stuff. They are one of the teams that are looking at doing pods in terms of seating so that you're not trying to keep every single person every other or every third or every fourth seat, right, and trying to stagger them. They're saying people usually come to games in groups. So if you have a group of 6, a family unit-sized group, we're going to sit you right together like you normally would because most likely you're either friends or your family living in the same house anyway. So you're already exposed. And that allows you a little more space around them where you can keep more distance and keep pods just placed all over the stadium. I expect it to be clusters. The challenge is going to be fan movement within the stadium when you want to go to vending or you have to go to the bathroom. Those are going to be juggernauts, choke points that are going to be difficult to manage. And they go into some of that here and about how much they're doing in terms of adding sanitization stations, keeping shields and everything on all the vendor service folks that are working and all the security folks that are working to try and keep all that separate. But honestly, I'm going to be really interested. I hope that those of you that are going to be going to the games will come back and give me some reports. I am really interested to see how it works. If any of you are happy to film on your phones when you go, I would love to get some of that footage so I can see firsthand. I won't be there, and I won't be traveling this year, so I'm really going to be outside the loop on that one. Any assistance from you guys will be great. But the 22%, it's an interesting number, and I for one would be interested to see why they arrived at that number. I've seen other teams that are saying 50%, 20%, 30%. 22 is an even number, but it's not exactly round. So I'd like to know. That's part of the process that I would really be interested in. Hopefully we'll find more information, but please check out this address. Hopefully you guys can see it here. I will highlight it just in case. That's at Chiefs.com and you can get all that information. Okay. I will kick that out of here now. Okay. Who is next? See, that was Daryl's question. That comes down to Gooch again. How are you? I know you're waiting. You've been very patient. And if you missed it before, it's going to have a bunch of levels. So everybody can participate as little or as much as they like. And I think it's going to be a fun season for that. Who's next? Mr. Oregon Chiefs. Chris, how are you? I think Bo Pete will take advantage of his shot with 30 in the ACL tear. What are your expectations for him? I'm keeping my expectations really, really low because put it this way. The Chiefs liked him as a UDFA. The only reason they went back up to get him is because they heard other teams liked him as a UDFA and they were worried they were going to get outbid. So I don't think that they ever saw him as a guy that's going to come in and play as a freshman, as a rookie, because they felt he needed that year of development, that he was going to be a UDFA level player. I think that tells you where he's at. But that said, it's not how you get to the NFL. It's what you do when you get there. And he's had a rough start. The orbital fracture, there's only a couple of ways that you generally do that, and you guys know what they are. So that puts you off on a bad start because you haven't been participating as much. But he's back now. Can he take advantage of it now? Because there are guys hurt ahead of him. He does have an opportunity. If he can show growth and he can show that he can be trusted to carry out his assignment, that's going to go a long way, and that will change the expectations. Right now, I expect him to be a practice squad player. If he makes the roster, that means that he's earned that respect from Sam Madison, from Dave Merritt, and from Steve Spagnuolo, and that's significant. So if a guy like that, who missed the beginning of camp, who was a UDFA level player to begin with, if he earns his way onto the starting roster, the active roster, that's a significant step, and you can give him credit because he earned it. Great question. Michael, how are you? How pleased will you be if people we need to have the next level of play impact the team and make some others expendable like Speaks, Watts, Dorian, Tano, Darwin, etc.? I have investment in some of these guys. I did a lot of work pre-draft on Breland Speaks. I did a lot of work on Dorian O'Daniel. Tano Passanio caught me out of the blue. I freely admit that. And so did Darwin Thompson. But if those guys can make the next step, it allows them to have depth and rotation, which takes the pressure off of everybody else, which lets everybody play to their maximum ability because they can go full steam knowing that they have a quality backup. That's significant. And all those places I think are going to be important this year. Out of defensive end / defensive tackle rotation. That's what Speaks will do. Watts right now is your starting free safety. That's significant. Dorian O'Daniel, I think I'm going to do a piece on Dorian either this week or next week. And I think it's very telling about where he's at and how this season is going to start. We're going to know right away about Dorian O'Daniel. I'll tell you that right now. Tano, I think, is a guy that Steve Spagnuolo even said today that they came to rely on last year. I don't see that changing either. So I'm very excited about all of them. Great question, Michael. Tyler, I don't know that we've answered your question before, so welcome. Who would you rather have on your defense? A pair of physical corners like Dale and Hasty, or a pair of safeties right now with Tyron and Thornhill? Can I say all? I have to caveat this because James Hasty is one of my favorite Chiefs players of all time. So I'm a little biased there. But me, myself, the eras are definitely broken out because of the eras they played in, for certain. I still would rather have man corners that can shut somebody down. But I will say this. Offenses today are designed to exploit corners one-on-one and put pressure on safeties. Safeties, I think, have more opportunities to make plays on the ball. So a guy like Thornhill, who I think is going to be a ball hawk in this league, I would not trade him right now. I think in today's day and age, Thornhill and Matthew are the guys that you want. I think the Chiefs are very, very fortunate to have both of them. I am pumped for them. Ian, can Deodu be like K-Pass? And I assume you mean make that progression in a new defense. Didn't do much for the first 2 years and then became a solid contributor in year 3. He contributed sometimes. I don't think he got enough go, and I don't think the staff quite knew what to do with him. And I think they have a better idea now. And when you look at it, Willie's a better athlete at a bigger size as well. In terms of poundage anyway. I think Dorian's just as tall, though. I have to look that up. Dorian's very specific in the way they used him last year. And again, I'm just going to, I think I will do it here in the next day or two, and I'll try to get it to you guys this week. Something specific about Dorian. And his usage was specific last year. I think that can expand, truthfully. I think you'll see more of the same, but I think it can expand. And I think he can be like K-Pass, where he puts it together near the end after a fresh start and a new defense with coaches that know how to use him, or if they didn't know last year until like the end of the season, now they have a better idea. Now they can experiment a little bit more. And does he get on the field? Muhammad, you tied in really nice with Ian. I do think that he plays more. I think that he is a guy, especially week 1, expect to see him. I do quite a bit, actually. So yeah, I think he gets more time, and I think he makes his way into a decent chunk of being appropriate to this team. Ryan White, how are you? Which particular UDFA wide receivers do you think will stick with the team? Lipscomb, French, Bacelia, Bocelli? Is that how you say that? I know it's Italian. I probably can't say it right. Could all have upside with Andy and Pat. That's for certain. They all have upside. Bocelli, or whatever his name is super fast. Comes from UW. I'm a big UW fan, so he's one of the schools that I pull for, and I know that offense prepares you to do some of the things that Andy likes to do. He's a kind of a slight build guy. I think French is bigger than I thought he was. Justin, I can't remember his name. He's got a hyphenated last name, and I should know it, but I don't off the top of my head. I think he's really interesting too, but my money's on Lipscomb. Lipscomb's fast. He runs good routes. He led the SEC in receptions his, junior year? The year before he came out. So like he didn't peak as a senior. He peaked as a junior, and he's got to get that back. But I think that's a really good sign, especially as a guy who's going to be a role player in this offense because of Hill, Hardman, Watkins, et cetera. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Pringle does. I think Pringle's coming on. I think he's got upside. It's going to be the comfort level that Patrick has with DeMarcus and that staff has with DeMarcus, and whether Pringle can break through that. I think it's possible this year. Great question. Ian Roberts, thanks for your super chat. Appreciate the support. Thoughts on Daniel Hearn? Yeah, I think you're right. I think you spelled that right. Don't know much about him other than he played for the Niners. He's more of a blocking tight end. I don't know that he's a blocking tight end. He's just more of one. I would, like they said, Blake Bell was a blocking tight end. He's not. He just does it better than the pass catcher type tight ends. I don't have a lot of high expectations for him. The fact that San Francisco would let him go now, you got to have a decent backup for Kittle, and you like to run the ball. If he's a guy that's that good at blocking, why would you let him go? So I think he's probably better than the alternative to not having Ricky Seals-Jones. Both he went out today, and Deion Yelder hasn't been practicing. So both the 2 and 3 are out. Nick Kaiser, bless his heart. That Southern saying, bless your heart. I like Nick Kaiser, and he is a blocking tight end. But that doesn't mean he can be the 2. Andy doesn't want a blocking tight end as the 2. You have to be able to get in the pass game and produce when Travis has to take a breather. So we'll see what Herm, whatever his name is, has a shot to do. He's going to get a good look. I'll tell you that. Let's see. Kelly Blevins, how are you? Ben Jones got hurt today. Ben Jones. What's the best type of market? What's the best type of in the available market? I'm not sure who Ben Jones is. Maybe you're talking Ricky Seals. Yeah. Ricky Seals-Jones. Yeah, he did. And I don't think that there's much out there. I think they're a little bit in trouble with tight ends. They better get Yelder back. Mr. Gooch, as always, tell Dan no Detroit hats when discussing the Chiefs. Hey, at least it's a baseball thing. I, for one, don't even follow baseball, so it didn't bother me at all, but I'll let him know. Ian, both Fortson and Dieter apparently making headline in camp, which is better chance to snag that number 6 spot. My money's on Fortson. I think we've seen what Dieter can do. I can't see him making a big push myself, but and I want to say this out loud after I say that because I'm not against Gary Digger. Somebody used something that I said about him not having the talent to push past where he is and threw it at his wife on Twitter. And I don't appreciate that. It wasn't any of you guys, I'm sure, but I just want to say it out loud. I have nothing against Gary Dieter. I just don't think that I think he's tapped out his talent. I don't know that he can progress any farther. While as I see a lot of upside from Fortson. So that's just where I'm at. So I don't know. Oregon Chris, pick your 4 players that they protect on the practice squad. Whew. That's a good one. I would have gone with Bo Pete. He might sneak onto the roster now. But we'll count him. Lipscomb, Darrell Williams, the center. If he doesn't make the roster, I think that he might. Haven't heard him make any noise yet, but this is really early. Think where they are now. Think of it as like the week before the first preseason game. That's where they're at in terms of progression. So it's just starting. I expect Darrell Williams, the center, the lineman, to make progress. And then the third, I would probably take Wharton, the defensive end or tackle or wherever they're going to line them up. Yeah, I think those would be the 4. Good question, Chris. Keep me on my toes. Young boy, how are you? Do you think Andre Baselli, Bucha, I don't know, will make the roster because he ran a 4.27 at the combine? I had him at a 4.32, but either way, he's super fast. The question is, can he play the role that he's been asked to play? He's a pretty slight guy, so I don't think that he's going to be a gunner. I could be wrong. Dave Tote will make that decision, and I will not question it. But I think his best shot is as a returner. So, yeah, I think he's one of the long shots. I think he would be another guy that I would put in that practice squad short list if I needed to. Casey, score prediction week 1. I think it's going to be sloppy, you guys. I really do. But at the end of the day, the firepower on the Chiefs offense, I just can't see doing much wrong. I mean, I'll call it 24-21. I think the defense will have their hands, maybe not. Let's call it 28-17 is what it'll be, Chiefs. Let's see here. Who's next? Muhammad, does Jody Fortson have a shot? Yes, I would pick him to be the 6. Any chance Nick Kaiser makes the roster? I mean, if everybody's hurt, if they have to put multiple guys on IR, then yes. Otherwise, I just don't think so. Just isn't enough upside in what this offense wants to do. Spags even said today they're barely even running the ball in practice. They're throwing, man. That's what they're doing. Should the NFL have one preseason game? No, I don't think it's worth it. I just don't. It's too risky. I don't know what's going to happen week 1, guys. I don't know how many people might get sick, how much is going to be let in the league. I just don't know. And so I would, if you're going to play a game, I would make it count. And so I think that the NFLPA was correct. I think that they're doing this the right way, that they shouldn't be playing games unless they mean something. So I'm all for them playing no preseason games. Let's see, sort of non-football, but is it possible to get a series about player community projects like Kelsey Stimulus Building, for example? You know, Aaron, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate the support. You were absolutely right. I think it's very telling that Travis not only signed a contract that is super team friendly, it is backloaded. It allows, I mean, if something were to go wrong, Travis is 33, 34. The Chiefs can walk away without any dead money. I mean, this is serious. He signs a team-friendly deal to play on this team and bring more championships to town. And then the day after, he goes out and buys a building to help the community. I think that's great. And I think that's significant. We are more X's and O's on this channel. But Danilo DiGiulio is going to come back. You guys remember him from the draft show. He's going to be doing a tailgate series for Sunday mornings. And I know that he is really into all the specific stuff, the lives of the players. Maybe he can take a look at that. And I will try to get something done for you, Aaron. And I appreciate the support. Thank you very much. Nathan, are you worried about cap space? Wasn't that why we fired Dorsey? It was part of it, but it wasn't necessarily cap space. It was long commitments to cap space. He tied things up that they couldn't get out of, and that was the problem. Whereas Brett Veach is keeping everything. He's getting players to buy into multiple championships and playing with Mahomes and taking what are more risky contracts for the players in order to do that. And it allows the team some flexibility with restructures or even releases later that have him in very good shape. He is less committed in the future than he is now. Whereas you couldn't always say that about John Dorsey's cap control or lack thereof. So, yeah, I think that's a significant difference. Ian, any chance we see Ward, Fenton, Snead all on the field together at corner while Breeland is out? I think it is a possibility. Again, I think Snead is coming along, maybe not at that point yet. But I think that is a definite possibility. It's one of the things that I would like to see, because that will have meant that Snead has made the adaptation, has gotten to the point where he can play in the NFL to the comfort level of Steve Spagnuolo and Sam Madison at the very least. So that makes me happy. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I hope that it works out that way. Michael, several groin injuries the first couple of practices. How worrisome is that for a short ramp-up season? That's exactly what I expected. When you haven't had that kind of pressure and practice and stuff from the spring, that's definitely in the realm of possibility. This is not shocking. Again, we're hearing that the severity of the injuries is not earth-shattering, that it is a bunch of pulls, that it isn't tears, that isn't things that guys have to either be out for weeks, short-term IR, surgical repairs, none of that. So that's great news. But I do expect these soft tissues. I don't think it will be that troublesome. You might have a guy here or there miss, but I think a lot of this is precautionary, and a lot of it is getting up into the NFL pace after what's been a really, really low action offseason. I think it's going to be all right. Bonaquai, how are you? Can teams cut suspended players like Breeland and Pennell and use the money to sign another? Technically, they can. But I think they have to designate they can't spend the money until they come back. I'll have to look that up. I'm not 100% on that one. But I'll tell you this, I don't think they're going to. They like both those guys. They're not going to look to replace them. Trent Green or Kurt Warner, very, very easy. Trent Green. Tactics, yeah. You know how to start the conversations, don't you? Why was Pennell suspended? Don't know yet, Nathan. We're looking to find that information out. Never mind Kareem. Let's go for Ray Rice. No, that's ridiculous. What are you doing? I shouldn't even clicked on that one. You got me. So last year, Chris was the one who talked about cutting weight and looking very slim, as well as the possible purpose. What do you think the weight cut for Speaks means and his role? Anthony, that's a great question. And I think it does mean that they may have even asked him to come to camp heavier last year. But what they got was not what they wanted. It was not a rocked up, bigger, beefier Breland Speaks. It was not good weight that he put on. So he dropped it back out. Pick up his speed, pick up things that he can do. So now he really is a guy who can play on the outside, and they feel that he has enough oomph to get off the line of scrimmage and not just be a power player. You got to have a little bit more explosiveness, and that comes by dropping some pounds. So I think that means that he's more of a utility, more of an option on the outside than just playing in 3-tech. And I think that's good to see. I think it's good for his future too. Ryan White with no LDT, no Niang. Does that make Darrell Williams a lock to make the final cut? I'm really excited to see what he can do. He and Kalichi next to each other could open up some big run holes. I agree with you. I would like to see that myself. Again, slow start. Ryder's taking all the first string reps right now, as far as I understand. And I've talked to a couple of guys who know what's going on out there. So no change yet, but I do feel like as Darrell gets used to it, I do feel he is one of the guys that has the upside to make this roster. So I'm going to cross my fingers that you're right, and he is one of, and I think they will keep 9, possibly 10 offensive linemen on the cut down day, assuming that they have to get to 53. There's talk that maybe they don't have to go all the way down to 53, that they just treat it as a mush roster. I don't know how that's going to work, but we will find out. Let's see here. Can UC Breland Speaks taking the starting spot from Okafor during the season? I think he can be a very solid starter. I don't see him taking the job. I think he can eventually become a solid starter. I agree with you there. The question is, he was on the team last year, but he's got no experience in this defense. I don't trust that he's going to be able to get the nuances like an 8-year veteran like Okafor does this season. I expect Okafor to be the starter until he's not physically capable to. But after that, then it's all a question mark. So yeah, I can see that happening eventually, Ian. Pono, the Kahlua pig, Poi, and Lomi Salmon is waiting for your return. I am waiting to return myself. Man, you got me fired up. So last time I was there out on Oahu, a friend of mine, he and his family were doing a cookout, and they bury it in the leaves and all that. And he only did half a pig, but still. And that might be the best pork I ever ate. Nothing against barbecue, but that was incredible. Dang. Now I'm hungry, Poto. Maybe tongue in cheek, but would you consider going after Matt Uden? I think there's an outside chance Matt Uden wants to come to Kansas City next year. I know he signed back, but I think he's very much keeping an eye on Kansas City as the next destination. And as long as he comes in and he's willing to take a salary that is commensurate with his skills, meaning that he is a pass rusher. I don't think he's terribly great against the run. He's solid, but he's not great. He's going to be more of a situational guy, I think, in this defense, possibly, given that he's getting older. I am more than happy with that. I would love to see it. And I did like the way that he approached that. You're not the first person to ask, and I know there's a lot of people with it in the back of their mind. Ian, will Willie Gay help Hitchens play better since Gay will be doing more coverage and can alleviate some of the pressure from Hitchens? They don't really play more or less coverage for the nickel linebackers. They don't blitz linebackers that much. It sounds like Willie's actually getting more reps at blitzing. So that makes me think that maybe they're expecting to play more base because teams are going to try to run on them. I don't know. But I think that what it allows them to do is try to play a little bit more matchup based. But at the end of the day, teams can motion and do everything they can to isolate linebackers whether they want him on a tight end or a running back. So I don't think it will necessarily alleviate anything for Hitchens. I think it will help Damian Wilson not having to play in the nickel and not having to play as much coverage in general. I think it'll let him do what he's best at, come downhill, attack, be strong at the point of attack. So I think that helps him too. Adam, will our line be athletic enough to do a lot of pulling plays? No, they're taking a hit there. They definitely are. Schwartz doesn't get out much anymore anyway because of his knees, and so that's a small limitation, but not anything unexpected. The guards are losing athleticism in what's changing here. Cliche Sumley, he'll do power pulls, but he doesn't leave the tackle box as far as anything that I've seen done well. So I don't expect a whole lot of pulls. It likely reduces the amount of screens unless they're running some of those trip formation screens. I hope they do that with some tight ends if they get enough to run it. We'll see. Adam, how are you? A lot of talk about CEH, but not a lot about Willie. What have you heard about his progress to this year? Spags said today that he is making progress and that he has the get it mentality. That's something Spags has said before about people. And I think that tells you that they're happy with his progress mentally. Now it's about keying. Now it's about stopping thinking and being able to hit your assignments. That's going to come, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time. But I do think that Willie is going to be somebody that by mid-season is going to be a stalwart on the defense, where right now he's playing behind Wilson in a number of packages, and I think he will eventually become the guy that's out there more. Snap counts might be roughly similar. Eventually, I think he and Hitch will be the two guys that play the most in the linebacker corps. Do you see Tyreek Hill getting locked up for the long haul next season? That's a good question. I thought he had 2 or 3 more years on his deal. I'll look at that real quick while we're talking. And I think the way that they have everything balanced right now, I think they need another season or 2 before they can look at that. Pat's going up the next couple of years. Travis, Chris, they have some spaces there where they have to make some room. So I'll look at Spot Track and tell you guys in a second. But I think that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I said that this all offseason. I didn't think they'd get all these guys extended this year. Again, this is just, you guys are watching a command performance by Brett Veach in getting these guys to take team-friendly deals so that they can get guys under contract to try and continue to win championships. I know they think they can win this year. I think they can win the next 3 years. And they're doing everything they can to keep this roster loaded to go on an epic run of 4-5 seasons that they feel they have a window that they can repeat and repeat and repeat. So that's the big thing. Looking at Tyreek's contract as it comes up here, he's under contract for 21 and 22. And I don't know if it's me, if I'm making a big rush. His cap hit this year is 17.7. It actually goes down next season to 15.8. So I think that's actually a little bit of savings. I don't know if there's going to be a big rush for that. Every time I say I think a player won't get signed, they do. So there you go. You just got your wish. I said he probably won't. So it'll happen tomorrow. Nathan Roth, do you think Seals Jones is out for the year? It's never a good sign when you get taken off in a cart, but it doesn't mean that it's season ending. So it may be significant. He might have to go on IR for a while. I just don't know, man. But when I do, I will let you know. Not that I'm bashing Watkins, especially since it all worked out. But should the Chiefs have considered Allen Robinson over Watkins 2 years ago? I don't think so. Allen Robinson's a good receiver, but I don't think he's anything special for this system. Sammy's athleticism at the top end lets this system get better opposite Tyreek. I don't think that when you roll coverage to Tyreek, I don't know that Allen Robinson is as good at taking advantage of the coverage he gets. So I don't think so. I think this is about having all your horses and just letting them run. Cole, did you see Deion Sanders' tweet about opt-outs? And if so, what's your take? I didn't. I saw that he left the NFL Network. I didn't see anything about opt-outs. But I've been pretty busy lately, so don't hold it against me. I certainly could have missed something. just like I'm missing where we're at. I think I'm way behind you guys. I may have missed something. Found this. Ed on time. Thank you for your super chat. I much appreciate that. What's the recovery protocol for a pulled hamstring? It very much varies on the degree of the pull, but it can be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. We're just going to have to find out what the severity is. Michael, any chance a little bit he makes the top 5 corners? I think there is an outside chance now. I'm still not leaning on it. That's good to know, Natalie. Ryan, just as Veach once pounded the table for Mahomes, I'm pounding the table so that Hunt will pay Veach and his staff. I'm with you there. And if you guys have a little bit of extra cash for a consultant, I'd love that too. Let's see. Aaron, who ended up with Wiley as the swing tackle? No, I don't think so. Wiley's going to be a guard. I think they want him in there. I think they like him in there. I think Remmers is going to end up your swing tackle. Quite frankly, Remmers is going to be the 6th guy like Cam Irving was. He can play guard or tackle. So I do feel that's the way it's going to go. And folks, I can't scroll up any farther. If I missed a big question or Lord forbid I missed a super chat, Aaron, would you check those? Because I kind of just jumped around. Ed on time was the first one that I saw. I think I got everybody before that, but I literally can't scroll up anymore. So, man, I must be behind. And we're almost at an hour, so I'm going to fire through these, you guys. Let's see. D4 doesn't get offsides and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl last season. Is there anything you see that the Chiefs doing differently over that offseason? No, I think they still would have let him go. I think they had let that contract mature for a reason, and they were looking to get out of it. If Spags is able to turn the defense into a top 10, 5 to 10, and was hired as a head coach somewhere, who would be promoted from in-house? I think the guy who's probably in the best situation is Brendan Daly, but I think the guy that would most likely be looked at as a guy that could be a coordinator right now without hurting the rest of the defense is Matt House. Matt House was a head coach in college. Daly's great, but Daly's a defensive line coach. I don't know about calling it. I don't know anything about him trying to do that at another level. So that's my gut instinct. I really don't know, though. Any noise factor help the Chiefs? It's going to be interesting. 16,000 fans isn't a lot, but I trust you guys to make a lot of noise too. So who gets more snaps, Watson or Watts or Thompson? I'm going with Watts. Pono, isn't it like rolling the dice on unproven talent when the defensive backfield rookie's cutting it too close? Should we sign proven free agents? That's the dilemma. Risk versus reward. Cost of a veteran versus their performance. The Chiefs have always sided on youth since Andy Reid took over, so I can't see him going away from that. Can DoD overtake Neiman in terms of snaps? That's the big question. They really like Neiman. He played a ton for them last year. But Willie Gay's taking on that role. So then it becomes, what does Neiman do that Dorian doesn't, and what does Dorian do? When they needed to shadow somebody, they used Dorian. They didn't use Ben. So they have definitely different skill sets. Depending on how this season goes, I think Dorian has a shot to do that. We just have to see. Is Dana going to be a contributor, or is he basically be a redshirt this season? I think he has an outside chance to contribute. They really are high on him. Brendan Daly in particular is really high on him. So, but again, he's a rookie who's been in 4 padded practices. He's got to show something. So we'll see what happens from it. Big Test, nice to see you. I didn't see a question, so I'm just saying hi. With only having 20% the same, do you think that they'll be open the parking lot to tailgating through the game again? I don't think so. They're locking down tailgating as well. You have to have a ticket to come in the parking lot now. They don't want extra people who won't be in the stadium to be hanging out in tailgating either, because that spreads the virus if they have it too. So it's all going to be very much restricted. Just think in every general way, if they can do something that they feel is precaution, they're going to do it. Ryan, with no more Brown, do Popey Keys and Lavert Hill have an easier path to the final cut? Yes, they definitely do. It's going to be about who makes an impression and who understands their assignments. Why didn't the Chiefs sign Osemele before LDT opted out? Seems like he would have been a smart move to bolster the offensive line. He was hurt last season, had shoulder surgery. That's always iffy for offensive linemen. And quite frankly, he's probably more expensive than they wanted to spend. They wanted to see what they had at the left side with Rankin, with possibly Niang. They thought they were going to get Niang to play over there too. So I don't know. I think it honestly worked out and saved them, because I think Niang has to be on the right anyway. Hey, Argo, I'm not putting up with that. There's no fake pandemic. You're banned. I will not put up with that. You're going to get people hurt. Seals Jones injured. What happened? I have no idea. None at all, Adam. I'm sorry. Any chance Tom makes the roster? I really don't see it, but we saw Kyle Shermer do things that I didn't think he was going to do too. What Andy said yesterday was specifically that Chad Henne is the backup, period. I still think it should be Matt Moore myself, but that's the way it is. And so it comes down to, do you keep 3 veteran backups? Do you keep 2 and only 2 and then sign both Matt Moore and Ta'amu to the practice squad? Because now you have expanded practice squads that include guys with more experience. Technically, they can get Matt Moore on the practice squad where he doesn't have to come into the office. He doesn't have to get exposed to anything. He's just literally there as a break glass in case Patrick has to miss 3 games and then Henne gets hurt the first snap he takes. Like, they could do that. I think that may be in the realm of possibility. Info. No one seems to believe we could afford to pay Kelsey. When does the cap strike us? My guess is in 2 years. Yeah, he's playing this season for the same money that he was playing for under his last contract. That's huge. And I think he counts 11 against the cap next year. Then it jumps. So that's when you have to look at a restructure or something else beyond that. Why did Bryce Hall fall so far in the draft? It's because he really is just a zone corner. He's not that much of a man corner, and I think there was some question about how well he reads his keys. So that's really what it comes down to, I think. For sure thought they'd pick him because he played with Thornhill. The staffs really don't care about that. That is not a thing that goes into the scouting process. Hardly at all. Every now and then you hear about it, but very, very infrequently. Alex, recovering from derecho. Wow, I'm sorry. I hope you're all right. Finally got here. Power down for 7 days. Dang, I'm glad it's back for you. I'm happy you're okay. I'm wondering when maybe Bashad Breeland's suspension will come. It'll come week 1. I think we'll find out about it the week before that, about how long it's going to be. Until then, I think we're going to be kind of stuck. Was Mo Claiborne overall a positive or negative signing last year? That's a good question, Ian. I think he gave some snaps that when they really needed him, but overall, I don't think that they felt he brought the attitude that they wanted. And he certainly wasn't a locker room bolster kind of guy. Do you trust our Money Watch starting? I don't know why, but I just love the way he plays. Nathan, I do trust him. I thought when he last was on the field, he made some plays, and he was playing deep at the time on a couple of them. And I do think that he's had time to mature and to learn. It's about putting it into practice. And I think that he can do that. I do trust him. And I think he should be the guy who plays free until Thornhill comes back. Dylan Kruckman, thank you as always for the super chat. I appreciate you, my friend. I saw Alex Smith come back on the practice field. Do you think he can push to start in Washington? I'm flabbergasted by this. If you guys missed it, I interviewed Stefania Bell earlier this year. When Project 11 first came out, about his recovery. And I asked her that day, do you think this is good for him, taking this chance, trying to return to the field? And she said she wouldn't put it past him and she wouldn't hold it against him, that that's what he wants to do. He's certainly capable of anybody's going to do it, and that she thinks it should be a joy for him to do. And I happen, for the most part, to agree with her. I'm concerned for him. One hit, and that changes his life. Like, there's not enough structurally there to sustain that again, I don't think. If he were to get hit in the lower body and break that again, he might not walk again. So I'm concerned for him. I pull for him, and I hope that he can avoid that. Whether he can start or not, that's a question of Ron Rivera going, if he's truly capable of all the movement that he looks like he is to me, then it really is a question about, do you want to give Haskins the reins, or do you want to let the veteran lead? And I think it's a total reset with Ron Rivera. I think he is generally a little bit more conservative on those kinds of things, but I just don't know. Great question, Dylan, and thanks again. Should I draft CEH first in my fantasy? Like, first overall? I don't know, man. I mean, he's going to be great, but first overall? I think Christian McCaffrey's going to get a bigger share of carries, touches, let's call it. But I mean, certainly a first round pick. I will. And I only play one fantasy league anymore, you guys. I play one back with my friends there. A couple of them who are still in KC, but friends from college. It's expensive to get into, but when you win, it pays off nicely. Why didn't the Chiefs keep Colquitt on a minimum deal? I don't know. Maybe they just felt like it needed to be a turning of the page. He had lost a little bit of power, in my opinion. Maybe they were more concerned about that, or maybe it was just the sheer cost of knowing they wanted to do all these other contracts. I don't know. I really can't tell you. Kelly, being that the Jones in the tight end position got hurt, what's the best tight end available the Chiefs could pick up? Man, I don't even know, to tell you the truth. Let me check Spot Track again, and I will tell you who stands out to me in the free agency roles. Because off the top of my head, I would be hard pressed to even come up with a name that I would want to go out and grab. Tight ends in particular are really, really difficult to make fit into this offense. And you've seen that, why it's been a revolving door, to tell you the truth, lately. Let's look here. No, there's a tracker. All right, I'm going to use Spot Track. I will even show you guys as I do this. I know we're over time, but we can go a little bit. I want to cover these questions. So let's just go look at, where are they? Tight end. No, not reset. I did that wrong. Let's see if this pulls up the tight ends, because I don't know that there's a whole lot of volume out here, you guys. Who's available? Is Witten still unsigned? No, he signed. So what do you got? Delaney Walker? Vernon Davis retired. Jeff Heuerman, he left Denver. I mean, that might be an option. I mean, does anything else stand out here to you guys? Because it doesn't to me. And I don't know what the deal is with Daniel Long. He's 36 years old, so that's always a stretch for me, but you never know. Jimmy, how are you? Question from earlier. By season's end, can DoD supplant Damian? Ooh, Damian Wilson? No. He doesn't have that kind of versatility. He cannot come smash when Derrick Henry comes to town and stuff like that. He is a coverage guy. He could end up playing some nickel. If Anthony Hitchens gets hurt, you could see Ben Neiman in the base and Dorian O'Daniel next to Willie Gay in the nickel. That could be a viable option. I am not even going to try your first name, Drake. That will expose me for the fraud that I am. Thanks for your dedication. I appreciate that. Do you think Lovett's release was more Andy or Veach's decision? It would be Andy's for certain. If Andy thought that he had a role for him, he would have kept him. I think, honestly, the release push might have come from Veach just to try to get the guy a landing spot. And clearly we saw the Packers were not shy in picking him up right away. Okay, Gary, I talked about that a little while ago. I must be really behind on the chat. All right, I'm going to hit all the super chats since we're over time, you guys. Everybody left. Thank you very much. Oh, Gary Downs, you are a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. I think it's great. I was prepared for there to be no fans in Arrowhead this year, so I'm actually pretty pleased that they were able to pull that off. So next, Durant's a tackle, as far as I know. That I don't think they've tried him in at guard, and I'm not optimistic that he makes the roster. Possibly the practice squad. Ian Roberts, thank you for the super chat. Thoughts on Reed saying that Chad Henne will be the QB2 over Matt Moore? Like I said, I wouldn't do it, but I think whoever the 3 and 4 quarterbacks, and I think Jordan Ta'amu has enough upside that they'll keep him on the practice squad. I think you could have 2 quarterbacks on the practice squad this year because of the rules that they've changed to allow players with more experience to actually be placed on there. Oh, man, I'm sorry, you guys. I missed so many questions. Good Lord. I didn't know there was so much in here. I'll just hammer a couple here as we slide through because I'm so far behind I can't scroll up anymore. Kelly Blevins, Hill, and Antonio out. Any chance that either of them making the roster means if they are not playing? It's tough. Hamilton actually has a long track record with special teams, so I think he would have the upside. I think Hill will be back. I don't think it's a serious thing. Will Taco Charlton have an impact, or will he ride the bench? I think he'll be the first guy off the bench on the defensive line, to tell you the truth. I think Okafor will come out and Charlton will come in on pass rushing downs. Yep, I'm with you on that, Harry. Sorry, I thought it was a question. Could the NFL have a season this year? Should they? I think they have to keep some teams afloat, to tell you the truth. Will they be able to pull off a full season? I still don't think that that's terribly likely. Do you see any of the speedy UDFAs making the roster? It's tough. Wide receiver, even at 6, is a battle, but that's the one spot that they could. I think Lipscomb or Bocelli could. Bocelli, dang it, one of them could make it. No, they won't trade for a tight end. It's not important enough. It's a backup. If it was a starter, maybe they won't trade for a backup. Yes, they will benefit from Bashaud Breeland, but they will not cut Breeland. Not unless he does something else dumb. Does Clyde have similarities to Emmitt Smith in that he's small and powerful? Yes. I think he has more similarities with Barry than he does with Emmitt myself, but that's just me. Oh, is that what it's called? I didn't know that, Pono. Your pork was cooked in an emu. Okay, awesome. I love that. Let's see. Steve Concepcion, haven't seen you in a while. How are you, bud? Would you say our offense is one of the greatest ever? I'm not quite there yet. They left a lot of meat on the bone last year. I think it will be. I'll tell you that. Nikki, Daryl, how much is the membership? We're gonna have a bunch of different tiers. I haven't set the prices yet. It'll be like $3, $9, 25, and probably 50 for the one-on-ones, that kind of thing. There'll be a big range. Let's see. Nathan, are we going to see a lot of contract restructures with all the giant deals? I think that's what it's looking like. Frank and Tyron in the next couple of years, I think, are probably highly likely for that. Are there any good offensive line free agents that I like? I mean, nobody comes to mind right now. It is so thin. It's kind of ridiculous. Like if they have another sustained injury, I don't know where they'd go. Like Ron Leary's 31 and he's out there. Larry Warford, I thought he signed, but maybe he hasn't. I mean, no, it is slim pickings out there, folks. It is not looking very likely. Is Veach making a mistake in retaining last year's players rather than trying to upgrade via free agency? Not necessarily, because he hasn't done it in a way that costs him the future where he can't get out of contracts or he can't restructure guys. So it allows them to put all their money into the guys that got him there and try to do it again right now and still not be tied to them for the future where it costs them. It makes it impossible to get other guys, younger guys. They're going to rely on the draft. They're going to rely on UDFAs to make the roster. What was a middle-class roster is becoming haves and have-nots. The top 6-10 guys are going to make a ton of money, and they're going to have to fill in with more UDFAs, more low-level guys, in terms of contracts anyway. Samson, how are you? How much you got? You bet the virus is over by 11-4. I hope so. I would not think that. Most influenza-based stuff comes back in the fall, so I'm a little concerned, but who knows? Have you heard that there's a new saliva test for COVID? Yes, I definitely did. It's recently approved, but I don't think it's finished trials yet. And 3M is actually looking at making another one that they've been teamed up with MIT. So there's a couple of options here. That's game changer because you don't have to dig into the nasal cavity to get a test done. It's super fast. The results are quicker, so you can test more often. It's way cheaper to produce those. I'm really excited about that aspect. I just don't know when it could hit and be useful. Why won't the NFL increase the roster limit? It's about the owners and the payout, I think, Steve. But I think in the end, I think they will. They talked about going to a 16-man practice squad. I think it's going to end up being more like 20, but we're going to have to see. Oh, Liz, you don't have to attack him like that. Do you think that O'Daniel linebacker is going to be make or break for the Chiefs? Yeah, I mean, he's got to show some more spark this year, or they're going to have to consider moving on eventually. Will Damon Harris make the roster? Nathan, right now, my guess is yes, because he's the one guy that has like a true speed rush. I'm really interested to see what they have in Tim Ward, though. They're really high on him, and I haven't seen him on the field yet. Could we see this Chiefs sign a DT with the suspension of Pennell and Noddy and Saunders? I don't think so. They have all those big defensive ends that they like to rotate in. So I think they're pretty comfortable with that. And if anything, if they don't have to play the Ravens and the Titans, I think they're going to be okay. they could look at somebody if Noddy and Pennell are going to be out. But I think Saunders is going to fill in nicely. He did a better job as the year went on playing in the run, so I'm comfortable with that. Old Thunder Dan. Thunder Dan will have something for you coming this fall, you guys. Yang opting out reminded me of having Malik Harrison on the board around 3. Do you think Harrison starts in Baltimore? I think he's going to eventually. I don't know if he's going to start with there right now. I think they have somebody else slated in next to Patrick Queen right now. I will definitely review that coming week 3. But, yeah, I think at the end of the day, if not by the end of this season, certainly next year, it's Harrison and Queen together. Or how much are we going to wish that he was a Chief running next to Willie Gay? You know, there are other linebackers, too. There's a couple of good ones coming out this year, too. You know, Stater, I think they tried that. They actually worked him out on his pro day, Jody Fortson, at tight end to see if he could do it. They tried it last year. It's just at the NFL level, it's angular. It takes velocity and strength, and I just don't know that he has the frame for that. I think he's a natural wide receiver, and I think they should just leave him there. Aaron, please shout at me if I missed any of the super chats. I don't think that I did, but I'm paranoid about doing it. If I did miss your super chats, folks, I'm keeping track of them all. I'm going to shout you all out when we get to the season. It's going to be awesome, and I really appreciate all the support. Casey Masterpiece. You can see that happening. Okay, I must have clicked on something. Ryan Strange, thank you for the wonderful content. Thank you for watching the content. I'm only as good as you guys who want to pay attention to it, so thank you. I solemnly swear, did a super chat for $20, no question. Been lurking for a couple of years and wanted to show some crafty, real crafty. Okay. With that, last question. Addicted to capping. Okay. How far up the depth chart do you see Fortson and Pringle getting this season? I appreciate the reviews and thank you for all the support. Right now they're 5, and I think Fortson can win the 6. He's in a fight, though. I'm not giving it to him. He does have to earn it. I think there's a possibility that he could eventually get up to Pringle at 5. I'm sorry, Pringle at 4. DeMarcus at 5. And then Jody would have to wait till next year, probably. And Dylan, I did get your super chat, so I think I'm caught up. Let's see. Scott, if Movis hadn't been injured last year, I think the 2019s would have been better than 18. He's a blistering 60 touchdowns and 6,000 yards. Wow, that would have been fun to watch. And so we'll end on this one, Harold, just to tie in with the Fortson thing. Dieter's sparking a little bit right now in early camp. He's done that before, and he trains with Tyreek and Patrick all offseason. That's a leg up. That's significant. So I think right now he's the forerunner for the 6th spot, but I think in the end it might end up being Fortson. But that's just where it sits right now. So my best to Garrett Dieter and his family. Nothing against him. I'm just telling you what I see on the field. So that's going to be it for tonight, folks. We'll have some more review for you. I'll do something on Dorian O'Daniel hopefully this week. If not, it'll slide into next week. I'm going to be off the last weekend, so I'll pre-record some things too. So just be prepared for that. We have a ton coming for you on the podcast as well as on here. Daniil is going to come back and do some things for you tailgate-wise, so I'm excited about that. It's going to be fun. We're going to get through as many games as this season will take us. So thank you all for being here. Thank everyone who contributed to the Super Chats, shirts, memberships, everything on the way by the game. I hope that will all work out. So keep it here. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll catch you next time.